And welcome back, everyone, to Who Would Win. Today's Who Would Win comes to us from Trenet. I think I probably butchered the name. But you asked the question, who will win the fight? Yusuke Urameshi from Yu Yu Hakusho or the Espada of Bleach? Both series, which I'm very familiar with. I grew up watching Yu Yu Hakusho every Saturday on Toonami. Actually, it wasn't. No, that was not every Saturday. Sorry, that was back when Toonami, I think, was like every afternoon. Point being, watched it all the time on Toonami. Now Toonami's only Saturday and only late night Saturday. At this point, I can't get back onto it. And obviously, I expressed how much Bleach is probably my favorite of the modern shonen era. I love Bleach. But the question is, who wins in a fight between the Espada, all 10 of them, versus Yusuke Urameshi? I'm going to go about this who will win a little differently. Instead of like going down each and every list, I'm going to kind of go back a little back and forth here because it's a tricky one, believe it or not, in my opinion. So Yusuke Urameshi obviously is human, but actually has the ancestry of a demon lineage that helped him get a lot stronger as the series went on. When we got to the end of the original series with the demon arc and all that, or a demon tournament, he was not the strongest in the series, but he was right up there. He had a combination of demonic energy, spirit energy, and sacred energy combining into a whole new energy. He had access to the spirit gun, the shotgun technique, spirit gun being a giant energy blast, shotgun being a giant scatter shot. He was also a skilled fighter in his own right. But that's kind of where, and he had a transformation that kind of emphasized his demonic heritage. But that was kind of all Yusuke really had. He had his wits about him too, but that was about it. So really, I can already tell you right now, from a versatility standpoint, the Espada got him completely beat. But really, what it comes down to right now, right out the gate, could the Espada beat Yusuke Urameshi? Is power, straight out power. And that becomes, believe it or not, tricky to figure out. Because by Bleach standards, Ryatsu, spiritual energy, the higher your spiritual energy is, the better you could cancel out a technique. And I'm not saying if, let's say, your spiritual energy comes out to 100 and your opponent's at 90, you're just going to immediately cancel them out. That's not how that works. But if you're, say, you're 100 versus your opponent, say, being only like a 50, well, then you can just neg an attack from them. Aizen demonstrated this. Kenpachi demonstrated this. So the question becomes, are the Espada strong enough to actually hurt Ichigo? Because this is where power scaling gets weird. Because there is a clear statement in both the manga and the anime stating how once Yusuke had basically unlocked his demonic heritage, he was the strongest guy on the planet, bar none, on the planet Earth, human world. And that if he wanted to destroy the human world, he could do that, and no one could stop him. Now, that statement could be taken several ways. That statement could mean he could destroy that plane of existence, he could destroy the planet, or he could just go on such a rampage that no one could stop him and he could raise hell on the planet. Most people take that to mean he could destroy the planet. Let us assume that that's what that means. But the problem is that the rules of Yu Yu Hakusho do meld a little bit with the rules of Bleach to a degree. Because Yusuke, as far as you know, could not destroy the demon world because the demon world was able to hold his power more effectively. Now, the demon world, as far as we know, is not a planet. The demon world is like another dimension. And that's probably why it's able to he's able to contain his power, as far as we know. Because the demon world seems to have like constant storms, but we don't really see like a sun or a moon very much in there. That's not to say there isn't one. But as far as we know, it's a realm dimension at least, same with the spirit world, whereas Earth we know for a fact is a planet. So it's easy to say that Yusuke is a planetary level being, but harder to say if he could threaten like dimensional boundaries. Whereas Bleach scaling gets a little bit more nebulous, a little bit more difficult, because they do not use planetary level feats very much in Yu Yu Hakusho, Bleach. They use more dimensional levels. And when we talk about that, we talk about in the sense of Yamamoto's power was stated to be able to destroy the Soul Society, which is a completely separate dimension, not a planet. This is I keep harping on this, but this is where the death battle really I felt got it wrong. It's like, no, Aizen's power is not equivalent to someone who's holding 3 planets together. It's equivalent to someone who's holding realities together. There's a very big difference. But Yamamoto's Bankai was threatening the very existence of the Soul Society itself. Aizen and the Soul King literally hold the fabric of realities together. Now, none of the Espada are on that level, but the Espada seem to have a minimum enough power to threaten, say, like the human world at least. Let's call it the foundations of, say, the Soul Society Wakamundo, the world of the Shinigami, the world of the Hollows, do seem to be sturdier and more designed to and capable of handling those kind of powers, whereas the human world is very much not. The captains generally have to, higher level Shinigamis, generally have to limit their strength when they go there, so they limit the influence they have on the world. Otherwise, they could probably start warping reality just by kind of like existing and flexing their power to some degree. Aizen, for example, when he actually showed up in the real Karakura town, was literally just evaporating people just by getting near him. Weaker souls could not handle just even being in his proximity. Now, he was also keeping his power very much in check. That was just a town. We don't know what, if he decided to go full out, what the actual capabilities would have been. All we know for certain is we know that, generally speaking, captain level combatants do not use their full power in the real world, in the human world, because the amount of influence they could have could be devastating. And we know that each of the Espada is at least equivalent to a captain class fighter. So the question quickly becomes, how do we compare Yusuke's level of power to the Espada's level of power? Are any of the Espadas more or less capable of destroying the planet Earth? I guess that's the real question we have to ask. So we know for a fact that the top four were limited to releasing their releases outside of Wakamundo, because if they just released their power, like their full power, they used their resurrections, they would destroy Wakamundo, which is at least, I think, described as a country-sized area, if I'm not mistaken. So that puts them at minimum, just by releasing their power, at least the top 4, as country to continental level threats, if we're going to use scaling here. But then it's also stated that they shouldn't be using the Gran Racero, any of them, because that could also destroy Las Noches. So any one of them using the Gran Racero would be causing a massive amount of risk to again, a country size level. But again, are any of them really planetary in their level of power? If any of them were to really decide, I want to destroy the planet Earth, could they do it? I will say this, because we don't have a real answer, because they were in a fake Karakura town, that whole fight. So we just don't have an idea of how they would interact with the real world. But I will say this, I would argue that if they really wanted to, that the top 4 Espada, technically 5 if you count Yami, probably could destroy the planet. Because when Genkai says you can destroy the planet and no one will stop you, they didn't specify how much effort it would take Yusuke to really do that. If he could just casually do it, or if it would take everything he had. I'm not saying it would take everything he had, but I don't think he could just casually destroy the planet. I think it would be more like he really would have to want to destroy the planet to do so. And I think that would be the same thing here. But again, this is all kind of... we're really doing like a kind of apples to orange kind of comparison in many ways, because it's like, okay, you got someone with a literal planet stated level of power to some degree versus individuals who aren't planetary necessarily, but can affect dimensions to some degree with their power. So it's really very difficult to gauge. I will say this, though. In terms of how many of these abilities that each of the Espada had that Yusuke could theoretically just neg right out, I have a feeling he could neg most of Xylopero's abilities. I think he just has that kind of Ryatsu power, or spiritual power, or energy, I should say, that would just negate Xylopero's weird abilities. Same with Zamari. I think the Amora ability could probably just be negated. After that, though, it becomes down to actual, combat abilities versus the rest of it. So Yusuke would probably start out the fight vaporizing 9 through 7 with a spirit bomb. Assuming that they're not dead, Yusuke could make quick work of him. One of Yusuke's other downsides in this fight is he's a great fighter, but he really is more of a street fighter and a brawler. He's not a martial artist. He can adapt on the fly, and he can fight very effectively. But against an actual martial artist who also knows how to, react on the fly, against someone who's his equivalent, he wouldn't fare very well. You might say, well, he got the one up on Sensui. Yes, but Sensui was not expecting. That's better. Sensui honestly wasn't even as good a fighter as Yusuke, even as a martial artist. Yusuke generally still had an edge on him in fight. Sensui just had more experience under his belt. But Yusuke was actually kind of the better fighter overall in that. Be honest, Sensui's martial art was really not that impressive, to be honest. You put him up against, say, I don't know, what was it, 25th Budokai, Goku? Goku would beat his ass in a straight martial arts fight, no doubt about it. Hell, you put him up against a lot of people who are just straight martial artists, and he'd actually probably get his ass kicked. If we're just talking about street fighting ability. And in street fighting ability, like martial arts, maybe combat, Grimmjow and Nuotara, I think both kind of have a little edge over him. Grimmjow specifically, he's actually the most hand-to-hand orientated of them. But still, as the fight would commence or keep going on, they would notice that their attacks aren't having a huge amount of effect on Yusuke. Mostly because his spiritual energy or his general energy, because it's not spiritual, it's now a mix, could negate a lot of them. They're firing Sarah's, and Yusuke would fire a spirit gun to maybe counteract some of them, or shotgun. You should also note, Yusuke does only have so many spirit guns he can fire. I think he kind of extended the limit after that fight with Yomi, but Sarah's could just be, especially when you're talking about like Stark, who could just fire infinite Sarah's. Sarah's no problem. Also, Yusuke has been known to tire himself out a lot, and very quickly, especially going up against strong opponents. Most of the Espada don't really have such a weakness. So once we get past like the bottom 3, you would start to see Yusuke struggling a lot more. Sarah's are confirmed to be relatively light speed in terms of actual attack speed. So Yusuke might have the light speed-esque reflexes, but multiple Sarah will become a problem for him. Now, that being said, there's also a bit of an honor thing going on here. Yeah, both Grimmjow and Nuotara would want to both fight Yusuke. But Nuotara would let Grimmjow go first. Grimmjow would go full resurrection. Yusuke could probably handle Grimmjow, and we're talking about the Espada as they are in the Espada arc, not past that, because that Grimmjow, as you get later in the series, Thousand Year Blood War, Can't Fear Your Own World, is much stronger than the Grimmjow we get here. But Yusuke could probably handle Grimmjow without too much degree, but Grimmjow would definitely put on the pressure, firing out those darts, doing his, I can't remember the name of the attack, but the giant energy claw. But Yusuke could probably get through there. He could also probably outpace Nuotara, but the problem is he's fighting so many high-level individuals. Even if he does outclass all of them in Ryatsu, or energy level, doesn't mean Yusuke is infallible, invincible, and doesn't mean he won't start to run out of steam for a while. What I think the issue for Yusuke ultimately is going to come down to is, even if he is stronger than every single one of these guys, it's a damn gauntlet. he will tire out eventually, and long before any of these guys fully tire out. In fact, using a resurrection usually means that you can just kind of recoup your stamina without any problems. Yusuke's biggest competitors or biggest problems are going to come down to, they are going to come down to Barigon with the Respira, which Yusuke does not have an immediate answer for. His best hope is that his energy level is so high that he can just do an Aizen and not be affected by it. I just don't think it is that high enough to not be affected by it. He might be able to resist it, or like once it starts happening, kind of like just take a body part off and then just power right through it when an attack. But there's no guarantee on that. And then Stark, who can literally just spam infinite amounts of Zero and shave off pieces of his soul for detonating wolf bombs. And then Yami, who is just sheer rage and power and could just overwhelm Yusuke with a straight-on attack. Now, whether or not Yusuke is stronger is kind of now irrelevant at this point, because he's going to probably take down Espada 9, which is, if you don't know who they are, 9 is the guy with this weird mask right here, who doesn't really have anything to deal with Yusuke. He's going to take down Silopro 8, who's the guy directly above him, the one with the pink hair. Silopro's definitely got some abilities that could give Yusuke some problems if he's able to get them off, which I don't think he's going to be able to. Assuming Yusuke decides to go long range and hit them with a spirit gun first. If he doesn't do that and tries to go in close range, this could be a bigger problem, because Yusuke, while showing he can disappear in a blink of an eye, has not shown like light speed level speed very much, especially not Hiei level. He can keep up with Hiei, but he's never just shown the ability to just disappear like Hiei, at least not consistently. Whereas every one of these guys knows Sunito, which is their super speed, which is equivalent to Shimpo, which allows high level, especially captain level Shinigami, to move at light speeds. So Yusuke would be having a real difficult time, especially as we get lower or higher on the totem pole for the Espada. Again, I want to say Barigon, Stark, and Yami are, and to some degree Holybell too, manipulating water is probably going to be a bit of an issue for Yusuke, as she might just straight up drown him. But yeah, the top 3 are going to be the big problems for Yusuke overall. So, do I think Yusuke could theoretically, in any one-on-one fight, beat any of these Espada? Theoretically, yes. I'm not saying it's a guaranteed lock. I'm not saying it's even the majority, but yes, he could, I think, in any one given fight, beat the Espada, any one Espada. If we're talking about all the Espada fighting him, Yusuke is going to be run out of steam long before he's going to get, I think he's going to get run out of steam after he gets down to the second end of the, once he gets past the first half. But anyway, I digress. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Who do you think would win? And let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. See you next time.